Hello, Ian. Are you there? We are looking for Mr. Ian Baker Finch. Justin Sandler, I see you. Kevin. Martin Chuck. Hello, Martin. Anyone seen Mr. Ian Baker Finch? There he is. There he is.
Yeah, I've been here. I didn't know how to do it.
That's normally the way. Turn your camera the other way.
Oh,
There we
okay.
go. That way's better.
All right.
It normally takes us a few goes in. You are completely normal in this world of golfers. We're not perhaps the most tech savvy bunch. How are you?
Very well. And you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
I'm sure you're a little bit like everybody else in that you're not working.
No.
Not working, and you're thinking about golf, and I know you love playing golf. You still getting to play quite a bit down there, Ian?
I played until we closed all courses in Palm Beach County about 5 days ago.
Oh, okay.
And then I also play up at Jupiter Hills, which is in Martin County. And I played up there until the weekend. And
Okay.
so today's my first day. Actually, I didn't play yesterday either. I had the day off. I've got a new grandbaby, Eloise, like darling little Eloise. So it's been good, actually, a good chance to spend some time. I came back from the West Coast Swing where I was working with CBS Sports on the 17th of February. I flew back on the red eye. Eloise was born on the 17th of February, and I've been home every night since. So Nana and I have been spending lots of time with the little baby.
Oh, what a treat, man! What a treat!
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Ian, come on, give us a scoop. You know, obviously there's a bunch of golfers watching, and we would all love to get your thoughts as it pertains to golf, 2020 golf this year. What's happening, and what do you see? I mean, it's tough to tell, obviously, but what do you foresee?
Yeah, I think right now we just have to keep doing what we're doing, and that's look after the people that need looking after, support those on the front line that are doing everything they possibly can to turn this pandemic and flatten the curve, as they keep telling us in the news. Let's hope we can do that sooner rather than later. But I know from CBS, we have a great team and a great family at CBS, and we hear from them every day. Sean and David, the chairman and the president, send out a little note each day to the CBS family, to all of us, and let us know what's going on and give us a little bit of insight into what everyone that works for CBS is doing at the moment, how they've handled things in New York City. With their buildings there and so many thousands of staff. And then there's people like myself and all of the golf team, or those that were working in sports that should have been doing March Madness this month. There was a whole lot of people that have been watching reruns of old college basketball games. You know, Jim Nantz got to spend the month at home instead of a month on the road calling the basketball. So we've got lots of great support going on within our little community, our little CBS golf community, as well as the big wide world of golf. For those nuts on Instagram and Twitter, of course, and other social media networks and outlets, we've been watching all of the golfers with their stories and their Luke Donald's been doing some fantastic short game stuff. Everyone's been telling fun stories and showing us what they're doing with their skills challenges, etc., in their off time. So it's been different, hasn't it? It's a sad time, but at the same time, I think the golfing community is such a tight-knit family. I think it's actually getting even tighter and stronger and more solid through this time, and certainly through social media.
Yeah,
it's been
I must
fantastic.
say, I'm seeing it. Hey, I'm seeing it. It's kind of cool because we've got all these great tour players and people such as yourself hanging out at home, and they're bored, we're bored, and so, you know, I know Podrick's been putting out some fantastic stuff.
Oh, I've got to watch him. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you got to look him up. He's putting out some just beautiful stuff, and he seems to be enjoying it, you know, and he's getting some rave reviews, and I've watched some stuff. He's got some great information, but also very entertaining stuff, you know?
Yeah, Podrick is entertaining and has a fantastic knowledge base.
Yeah.
Next to Vijay Singh, probably no one's hit more balls or worked harder on their game than Podrick Harrington over the years. He is a hard worker and a diligent, taking in information all the time. You would love having a great discussion with Podrick. I mean, he would love learning from you and vice versa. So I hope he's got a range, because he will be going absolutely batshit crazy if he doesn't have somewhere to go hit balls.
It appears that he's got like a short game area around his house. And so he can hit, it looks like he can hit up to like 70, 80-yard shots.
Oh, okay.
Out there. And so he's doing a lot of stuff there, and it really has been good fun. One thing I noticed earlier today, Ian, you know, this thing seems to be going around on Twitter where if you're in the golf family, so to speak, if you're a golf person, post your favorite golf picture.
Yeah.
And I saw the photo you posted, and it was a beauty. Yourself and Peter Thompson, am I correct?
Yes, actually, I'll pull that up on my iPad and I'll show those that haven't seen it. But Tomo was a mentor of mine in the early 80s. Yeah. You may remember Peter Thompson. Obviously, Australians love him. He was, along with Greg Norman and Kari Webb, he was our greatest golfer. We miss him. He passed away. He was similar age to Arnold Palmer. Okay. And he was really Australia's Arnold Palmer in a way. He won 5 Open Championships. And he was preparing to go on the Champions Tour. And he went on in 1985. He was actually 55 years of age when he joined the Champions Tour. And he won 9 times in that year. So the year before, he started to play again. And I was fortunate to be the guy that he played with all the time. And let me find this photograph. But he was an exceptional talent, a wonderful man, a great guide and confidant to me and many others, of course, in Australia. But the best story I've got for you is when I went to play on the European Tour in 1984, I had never been over. I got a few invitations because I'd played well in Australia and I was top 3 on the money list from the Australian Tour. I'd won the New Zealand Open as a young man. So anyway, I go over to play and I arrive for the British Open on the weekend, and I have Peter Thompson, who won 5 times, Kel Nagle, who won the Centenary Open at St Andrews, Graham Marsh, who won 60 times around the world. And the 3 of them took me 4 rounds, 4 days, Sunday through Wednesday, around St Andrews.
Wow.
So the photo I had that I showed this morning was Tomo in one of those rounds, showing me around St Andrews. Okay. I don't know if I can show you that.
Oh,
there.
Yeah, you can see it beautifully.
That was
cool.
Tomo
shot,
showing me around. That just to prove I did have black hair before it turned grey. And then Arnold had a caddy, a famous caddy, Tip Anderson, and Tip caddied for Arnold when he won the Open and for every year when he played. And Tip caddied for me on the weekend because Arnold didn't arrive until the Monday. So I had 3 great players to show me around and Arnold Palmer's caddy. So it was pretty amazing back there in 1984 to play in my first Open, and I led for 3 days, had a chance to win, played with Tom Watson in the last group on the Sunday.
Oh, and what a treat, eh?
Yeah, if you remember Seve winning with that navy blue sweater on that he wore for the next 3 years every Sunday?
Yes.
We were on the 8th. Yeah, we watched on the 18th tee, Tom and I. Tom needed to hold his second shot to tie, as it turned out, because he messed up 17. But
he hit it on the road,
great
didn't
memory. He did, yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. I'm too young to remember Peter Thompson or to have watched him play much, but a couple of months ago, the Golf Channel had one of those Shell's Wonderful World of Golf matches.
Yes, I saw it with Gary Player.
Exactly. I think it was 1962.
Yep.
And it was at Royal Melbourne, and some weather came in. And, and these players, Gary and Peter Thompson, they didn't have a logo on them. Okay, there was no logos. They both had like a little sweater on. Very nice. Very cool.
Yeah, great swing. Yeah, I remember watching that at Royal Melbourne. It was cold and wet and windy and, terrible.
They hit driver into 16 at Royal Melbourne West. and Gary literally got it up and down maybe 7 or 8 times out of bunkers, and Peter Thompson just absolutely put the hammer to him. I mean, Gary got it up and down and must have still lost by 5 or 6.
He did. I think it was 71, 76 or something 70, 76. But Tomo was an exceptional swinger of the club, just simple thoughts.
Beautiful.
And, you know, he had an extra gear as well. He plotted his way around, but if he really needed to hit one an extra 10 or 20 yards longer, he had that ability as well, even with that beautiful smooth swing of his.
Yeah.
There's another couple of great Australians there, Kel Nagle and Peter Thompson. They won the World Cup a couple of times, and they won that Champions Tour 4-ball event. And Kel also passed away recently, but what a great player he was.
Very cool. So Ian, you know, I recently returned just prior to all this coronavirus happening from your country, your home country, and we played 8 rounds of golf. Primarily Melbourne, and then we went down to Tassie and played Barnbougle.
Oh, beautiful.
And I must say that having played a lot in Ireland, I haven't played all over the world, but I've been fortunate to play quite a few good golf courses. I believe that Sandbelt area, if it was closer to America, it would be the best in the world. We would rate it as the best in the world. I do, having been there.
I agree.
Tell me about it. What do you think?
The Sandbelt is, for those that know golf travel and have been out of the country and had the opportunity to travel around the world, people know it's spectacular. It's an area, we call it the Sandbelt. Thousands of years ago, it would have been the coastal bay around Melbourne. For those of you that have traveled to Melbourne, it's about a kilometre or 2 inland from the bay. Yeah. But it's links-like in that it's firm and fast. But it's very natural. It's not overly manufactured or manicured like many great courses are here in the States.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's like, say, a Shinnecock or a National, you know, that area up there, which is kind of sandy and rustic, but with hard, fast greens. But all of the courses are within, say, 5 miles of each other. So you can go, if you want to stay in the city, you can drive half an hour to these great courses, Royal Melbourne, Kingston Heath, Victoria. So I could name them all in a second, but that little area or that little pocket is some of the best golf anywhere in the world. And if you book in advance and you're a member of a club, you can actually get on these great courses. Sure, you might pay $400 or $500 Australian to get on them, but there's not many courses ranked in the top 10 in the world that you can call the pro shop and say, hey, I'm coming over from the United States. I'd love to get on your golf course. Yeah. So I think that's another one of the unique attributes of that area is that the clubs all work together. They're known as the Sandbelt clubs. Yeah. And you can call and contact them online or by phone or whatever and actually get on the golf courses. So they're firm, fast, links-like, and just spectacular design. Alistair McKenzie and his team had a lot to do with a lot of those courses. And you may have got to this eventually anyway, but I have to say that Royal Melbourne at any time is top 10 in the world, and some years #1. And we got to see that at the President's Cup at the end of last year. For those of you that had the chance to watch that, everybody raved about it. Yeah. And just across the street is Victoria Golf Club, equally as good. Just up the road and a couple of corners away is Metropolitan Golf Club, Huntingdale, Commonwealth, Yarra Yarra, all on the one road, all in one street. And then just down the road from there, another kilometre, is Kingston Heath, which is my favourite of all. And then a couple of miles down the road is a new 36-hole redo of a great club called Peninsula. It's now called Peninsula Kingswood. And that is just spectacular, equally as good as any course you'll ever play in the world, and it's 36 holes. So
that truly looks amazing. Yeah,
it is.
Kingswood looks great.
It really is.
And Ian, you know, our group, Terry and I took a group of travelers over, and we played a lot of the courses you mentioned, and we played Kingston Heath, and people came off the golf course and they said that was great, but they looked a little beat up, you know. Mm-hmm. And then we played Royal Melbourne West, and they came off the golf course and they said that was great, and everyone was like can we go and do more? You know,
Yeah.
and it was very interesting to see the difference. Kingston Heath is demanding in that it says, I need this shot now. Whereas Royal says, have fun, kiddies, do whatever you want, and let's see how it works out, you know. It really, really so much fun. I could just play Royal east or west any day of the week.
The thing that I always ranked Kingston Heath #1.
Yes.
And I'm an honorary member there, and I won tournaments there, and it would be, if I had one day to play my last game of golf, it would be at Kingston Heath Golf Club.
Okay.
And in saying that, I'm not demeaning any of the others. I love them all. Sure. Every course is spectacular. I love spending a couple of weeks every year in Melbourne and playing all the great courses. But Royal Melbourne was always known as the composite, as we say in the United States, in Australia, composite course.
Yes.
Coming from SA, you would say the same, I'm sure.
Correct.
And that's 12 holes of the West course and 6 holes of the East. And the reason they did it was for the Canada Cup back in the 50s, the now World Cup. They wanted all of the people in one paddock, as we called it. There was a few roads that ran through the 36-hole development. So they wanted to encourage all of the thousands and thousands of people that came out to spectate to stay in the one area. So they developed a composite course for everyone to play. So everyone got to know the composite course at Royal Melbourne, and they kind of forgot about the others. But if you go, and you had the chance to play that 36 holes, the East and West, it's a treat. It really is. Possibly, certainly in the top 5 36-hole complexes in the world, and no one would argue that, and I think the best.
Yeah, the interesting story, the head pro, Richard, told me the story. He said Crenshaw was playing an event there, and they were playing the composite course, and the event finished on Sunday, and Crenshaw came back on Monday. And they said, what are you doing here? And he said, no. He said, all week long, I've been looking over to my left, and I'm seeing the best par 3 I've ever seen in my life. We didn't play it. And he says, I would like to see if I could come out and just play that hole a few times because that looks so amazing, I have to play it. And it was one of those holes that certainly wasn't part of the makeup. And I think I know a lot of people in America think the composite course is they've cherry-picked the best holes, and that's not really the case.
No, not at all.
You know, it's location specific. They're fit in the paddock, and that's what makes up the composite course.
Totally. And I would gladly go play the East, which is only 6 holes of the composite, you know, that equally as good as the other. And it's interesting to play. It's like going to the UK and Ireland and Scotland, that whole region of the links courses, and playing some of those that haven't had an Open, seeing the ones that have been dressed up a little bit for Open qualifying, the ones that have been really dressed up for the Open, and then the ones that haven't been touched at all, and they're still only 6,000 yards. And the bunkers are shallow but prolific, and the greens are a little smaller but a bit harsher. And the gorse is thicker and less manicured. I mean, it's interesting to go play some of the holes that haven't been dressed up, if you will, for the composite course or for the President's Cup or for the Opens that are played there, and see the other holes. And you know, there's a great little par 3 across the road after the 2 long par 4s where you go up around the corner and then around the corner again at 9 and 10 of the composite, and you go across the road. There's a beautiful little 9-iron par 3. And then there's a lovely little par 4 where Jeff Ogilvy lives up the left side there. That's just spectacular. Holes that you never see on television that are equally as good as anything you'll ever see. And the one that Ben Crenshaw was talking about, we never used to play it in the old days. We always played 16 of the composite was the big long 4-iron par 3 up the hill. And then we walked past the one that they played this year at the President's Cup to get to the 17th tee. And that's the one he talked about. And it's, you know, all of the par 3s in the Sandbelt as good as any par 3 in the world. And I'm sure anyone that's been down there, you don't need, to me, and I come from the old school, and I'm sure it's a segue into something we can talk about with the game today. Par 3s shouldn't be rated on length. And none of the great old par 3s were that long. They were typically between 140 and 170 yards.
Yeah.
And they were 5-iron into the wind, perhaps maybe even a little knockdown 4-iron or something on a windy day. And on downwind days, you're bouncing a wedge on. But they're bunkered well, and the greens are undulating and sloping. And the par threes, you could name 10 of the world's greatest par threes just in that sandbelt cluster.
I would agree. Yeah, yeah. Number 5 on the west. I mean, what a treat, what a treat. It really is fun. And so, Ian, you segued perfectly into, old school versus modern day, the rollback. What do you think about it? What purpose would it serve if we had this rollback where, do you prefer or vote for a rollback at all? Do you vote for a rollback for the professional game, a rollback for the whole game? What's your take?
It's obviously a difficult answer to get everything right, because they've been dealing with it, talking about it for 30 or 40 years, and certainly a lot in the last decade since the new type of ball and the large driver head has taken over.
Yeah,
I think, let me say that the great champions of any era would be the great champions of every era, regardless of what we're playing, how we're playing, the length of the course, the equipment we're playing. Bobby Jones would be the best now if he was playing, as would Jack Nicklaus, as would Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Ben Hogan, even though their equipment was totally different. Okay, yes. So I thoroughly believe that. I'm not saying that the players are better now than they were then, because if you look at the ball and the driver head size and the equipment and the science involved in golf, the technology of golf now, the difficulty in being a great player now is possibly far more difficult in so many ways, because so many more athletes are playing. The money is so much bigger. It draws more people to the game. So the depth of golf right now is extremely difficult and strong, and you better be a hard worker, regardless of your talents, if you're going to make it. So that being said, why is the longest hitter the best player? That's something that sticks in my mind, that if I go back, say, 50 years, sometimes if you were a great putter or you had a great short game or you were a great iron player, that was your weapon. Yeah. Greg Norman was good at everything, but his weapon was the driver.
Yeah.
Now it seems if you don't have a driving game, it's very, very difficult to compete on the PGA Tour. So we'll see less and less Corey Pavins and Jeff Slumans and smaller stature players. I'm not saying smaller guys can't hit it far. Look at Louis and Justin. There's so many guys that can hit it far, but just in general, it favors the Dustin Johnsons and the Brooks Koepkas and the really big, strong, athletic, capable guys. Rory McIlroy, of course, probably 170 pound and can hit it 400 yards. So it's not just the big guys, but just in general. And I think it's a mixture of everything. They've grown up with the new equipment. The ball doesn't spin as much. The driver head size is so large that the off-center hits still go reasonably well. So it's now almost the club of choice. Whereas in the old days, you teed it low and you kind of gouged one out there about 230 under pressure and hope you got it in the fairway. Yes. Now you can hit a back foot 5-iron 270 yards if you want to.
Yeah.
So the equipment, if I go to the next level, we're going to run out of land. To make a course play the same as they played, say, 50 years ago or even 100 years ago when they were designed, we need to send those tees back even farther. And we look now when we go play, I don't play the back tees anymore. I only hit it 250 yards, but I look back 70 yards. And if I go play with the big guys here, there's a lot of guys live where I am here in Jupiter and West Palm Beach. They will still hit it past me from those black tees when I'm playing one tee up 50 yards ahead of them.
Wow.
They're 75 yards longer than me.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the great old courses will become redundant because they're landlocked. There's no more room to make 7,000 yards. And then I think what happens, just to finish with that, I think then we trick up the courses and we make the greens far too hard and fast to make par relevant.
Shinnecock.
Yes. And I love Shinnecock, and that's just such a great golf. It's the best golf course in the world.
Yeah.
but if you make the greens too hard and too silly and the wind blows, now you're making, I think Rory shot 80. How does Rory
Ricky
McIlroy
Fowler
shoot?
shot 85, 65.
There you go. How does the best players in the world shoot 85? It's because the greens are like this, right?
Yeah.
So I just hate to see the way we have to make the courses, prepare the courses to make par relevant because the ball goes so far. And golf is exciting now because the ball does go so far and all these athletes are playing and it's fun to watch and kids love it. And we're drawn to the athletes that play the game now. I love that side of it. I'm not taking anything away from them, please.
Yeah.
But we are going to run out of great old traditional Royal Melbourne style, Kingston Heath style golf courses because of the distance the ball goes. And it's not just the ball. I think if the driver head size was that big instead of that big, it'd be a lot more difficult to swing at 130 mile an hour and keep it in play.
And so, Ian, would you propose a rollback for golf or for professional golf?
No, for golf, because if they just say they made the ball, and hey, everyone's got an opinion, right?
Sure.
This is just my opinion.
Yes.
There's millions of smarter people than me trying to figure this out, and they still haven't figured it out. Yeah. But I think they will. I think they've started this. They've drawn a line in the sand now, and they're moving forward, and they're trying to address this situation. I would hate to see a split of the two rules, because when does a young kid who wants to be a tour player, when does he switch from amateur rules to pro rules? When does he say, hey, I'm going to switch to that little headed driver and that spinny golf ball from this one I've been using for 10 years? I don't think that really works. But I do believe if they made the ball spin a little bit more and they made the driver head size a little bit smaller, it wouldn't affect me as much as it would someone that swings at 120. Someone that swings at 80 mile an hour, a ball that spins a bit more might go 1 yard less. But a ball that spins, say, 10% more for the guy that swings at 130, it's going to be a lot harder to control. So if they brought the driver head size back to, say, 350 instead of 460 and made the ball spin a little bit more, that would be my answer, because I still believe the OEMs and the scientific side, the technical side of golf, they'll still figure it out. They'll figure out a way to look what they've done in the last 10 years. The ball really hasn't changed that much since the Pro V1, say, in 2000. So it's, yes, they're fitter, stronger, faster, better, not taking anything away from the players. But we do need to have a look at it. What's the best for the game? What's the best for the game?
For sure. I would agree. Obviously, human genetics haven't changed in the last 50 years. Humans are still humans. But I think when you take Jack Nicklaus and you send Jack Nicklaus to the gym twice a day, and you give Jack this equipment that fits him perfectly, and Jack has access to technology and training and all of these things we have available to us now, I think Jack gets that much longer, Jack gets that much better, and that's what we're seeing more and more of. And, I think what you were saying earlier with the depth of golfer that's out there at the moment, the margins are so much skinnier, simply because you cannot just be talented today. You've got to be talented and fit and smart, and you've got to have everything going for you in order to show your advantage. And so I must say, in a roundabout way, I would love to see some of the old golf courses come back. Certain golf courses, and you most probably are not allowed to say it, but I'm going to say it, that there's a course that hosts a major championship every year, that had to go and spend $25 million and rebuild 2 holes at their neighboring facility so they could move a tee box back, and that's, that's not something that every club can do. That's not something that almost any club can do. It's kind of a little bit crazy, really.
It is, and it's for the average golf course. they will lose a lot of the younger players because they are landlocked and they have a 6,500 yard course. The young guys will want to go join somewhere that's 7,500 yards so they can hone their game on a tour-like course. That's not good for a lot of clubs either. You know, they've got a great old-fashioned design that all the young kids can drive all the par fours. I remember when I started playing, 50 years ago, getting old. 380 was a long par four.
Yeah.
You know,
that
400
par four,
Yeah, 420 was, oh my God, 475 was a par five.
Yes.
When I started playing.
There was no 450 plus par fours.
No, and 420 was a drive and a long iron.
Yeah.
For me anyway, or at least a 5-iron. But back, you know, as a kid growing up, that you can't just stay in the past. I understand that. But a lot of our great old courses were built in the golden eras from, say, 1915 through 1930. And so many of them are landlocked and just can't be recreated into something that tests the best players of today. And we see a lot of them try to do it. And it just becomes a little bit silly the way they have the rough like this, and they'll water the rough and they won't water the greens, and they'll put the pins 2 paces from the edges, and they have to do this to make 70 or even par, whatever you want to use it as a benchmark, as relevant. And you and I know, if you put the tour on a regular golf course, the average score will be 64, and there'll be 100 players break 59. Quite easily. You know, if you had greens that are 11 on the stimp meter and they're playing 7,000 yards, every one of these players would shoot 64 or better. They're that good.
It would be a little silly, really.
Yes, I'm not saying they should do that, but it's,
it's you said an interesting word, Ian, and I liked it. Why should we have to recreate these old golf courses? They've stood the test of time for 100 years. And now we've got to come in and recreate them. And somebody commented a little bit ago, they said, why not just make golf courses narrower, like where they had the Ryder Cup in Paris?
That's manufactured too, though. I'm a no rough guy. I like hard, fast, no rough.
Can you picture Royal Melbourne with the
no rough
fairways and rough? No, that would be horrible.
The ball runs into trouble. If you've got hard and fast, those corridors of tea tree, boy, I better be shaping my drive there or it's going to run into that tea tree. Or if you've got ponds and the fairway runs into the pond, you've got to aim away from it because the ball rolls into it. So I'm a hard, fast, no rough guy. I hate greens that are surrounded in rough. I like greens like I grew up on in Australia, where you go, no Australian player fires at the flag on a back pin, because they know they're 50 yards through the back and they're making double bogey. We all laid up. We took the short club and hit it short of the pin. We never, ever went for a back pin. In the US, in so many courses, they're surrounded in rough. Everyone fires at the back flag because it rolls over the back 1 yard and it's in rough. And you hack out with your lob wedge and you still make par. But you saw those courses in Australia. If you go over the back of some of those par threes, you lose your ball or you got a 60-yard shot coming back to a downhill green. So, I'm a hard, fast, bouncy guy. I'm not a narrow the fairways, make the rough thicker. Because to me, if you narrow the fairways, make the rough thicker, that only plays into the hands of the longer hitters because they just tee the driver higher, hit it further down there, and hack out with the wedges. And I'm generalizing again, I know.
Certainly,
in general.
I get you. I had Michael Breed on a couple of days ago, and I said, Michael, what's your favorite golf course? And he said, my favorite golf course doesn't exist anymore. And he said it's Augusta National from the 80s, which I thought was kind of a cool statement, you know, because it really, Augusta National, as you and I grew up watching and you grew up playing, it really doesn't exist anymore. And it's so different. It's so much narrower, so much longer. And that's not Alistair McKenzie. You know that, and I know that. Alistair says, here's your options, kiddies. Go and have some fun. And the width is gone, and they've had to change that golf course in an effort to protect score, in an effort to really protect the integrity of a
Yeah.
number of those holes. I remember Tiger Woods had 78 yards into the 18th green one year.
Yeah, I know. I think what they're trying to do there is try and recreate the same club for the second shot, or the approach shot into those greens as they used to have, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And that's where they've added that extra length, and they're going to continue to try and do it wherever they can. I'm very fortunate. I get a chance to play Augusta National regularly. I've got some very good friends that are nice enough to invite me up there sometimes, and I obviously get to cover it with CBS Sports and have been covering the Masters since I stopped playing back in the 90s. So I know the course well. And if I go for 2 days, I'll play the front of the championship tees one day, and I'll play the member tees with my friends the other day. For me, it's 6 shots easier from the members tee. I love playing the members tee.
It's fun.
It's fun again. It's 6,300 yards, and I only hit it 250. I'm not crushing it out there 300. So the back tees for me are very, very difficult. I'm hitting a hybrid into 1. I can't get my drive up over the bridge of the hill. 18, I'm hitting a hybrid into 18 because it's so steep. People don't realize.
Yeah,
it's such a great golf course. It really is, and it's always in immaculate condition, and it's a fantastic place to be fortunate enough like me to go play there.
Yeah.
But the back tees for the average player, and that's another point, I guess. I'm still a pretty good player. I don't hit it far. From the gold tees, from 7,000 yards, I can still play.
You can play.
But I can't play those. It's 75 yards between the best players and me. Yeah. So that never used to be that way. The long hitter used to be 20 yards longer than average. Yeah. Now the long hitter is 75 yards longer than average. That's the big difference. That's what makes the reasoning behind doing something with the golf courses or something with the equipment so necessary, so demanding. Really, I think something should need to be done.
Yeah. So Ian, we're talking about Augusta National. What do you think is going to happen this year? What's your call? Obviously, nobody knows, but what do you think is going to happen with the majors?
I think the majors, they're talking about all different dates. We read this week that the US Open, for instance, will stay at Winged Foot, but it will, at the moment, they've got a preliminary week later in the season. Okay. I can't tell you exactly when that is, but I would imagine it will be August or maybe late August, early September. Okay. The Open Championship will not be played in July at Sandwich. It will be more than likely September. The PGA Championship, I believe, will go to October. And I think the Masters, if it's played, would need to go to November because of the way they set the course up there. It's overseeded with rye. It's a Bermuda-based golf course that wouldn't be the Augusta that we know if they played it any sooner than November. So I would imagine, and then of course we've got the Ryder Cup. We've got the 4 majors and the Ryder Cup are all going to be squeezed in. We talk about the season of championships. We're normally playing from March through September into the playoffs, right? That finish early September. Now I think it'll be August through November will be all of those great tournaments. And then the tour has to sort of slot in those events that they can amongst the fall series. Yeah. I'm sure every one of the majors, the governing bodies, the USGA, Augusta National, obviously the R&A, and the PGA here in America, they want to play the 2020 major from their organization. So they'll do whatever they can. And then we have to fit in with the television schedule. Football season starts early September.
Didn't think about that.
That's going to be a big decision, who covers the event. Yeah. Obviously, all of the television networks want to cover the majors. They're icing on the cake for the year, the jewel in the crown. Yeah. So that's what I believe will happen. I think they'll all change dates to late August, September, Ryder Cup, September, Open Championship, PGA, Masters. That's what I think would happen. But hey, who knows in this?
Who knows? It could change
this crazy time.
Yeah, could change this afternoon. And Ian, come on, I've got to ask you. You know, obviously you've played some fabulous golf as the 1991 Open champion. I must say, I watched that front nine on YouTube this morning with that pink shirt, and it was
I always was a trendsetter.
It was as if you had no ball in play. You were just making practice swings. Every swing was perfectly in balance. It was fabulous. I think the only shot that I could see that you missed a little bit was your second shot into number 9. You pulled it a little bit. I did
because I didn't want to miss right to that pin.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a special time. I was very fortunate to play with Mark O'Meara, and he was a good buddy of mine, and he was a fast walker as well and a smooth swinger, so it was good for my mental side of the day as well. And I'd been playing well, you know, coming in there. So my goal was to just play that tournament like it was any other tournament. Try and reduce the anxiety of playing in a major when I was in good form. I'd lost in a playoff the week before in the States.
Okay.
So that was my goal all week. If you can, try and treat this like any other tournament. And I think all of the players out there, all of the top players will say that's what they try and do. They're all amped up for the major.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in really good form, you're going in there thinking, boy, I could win this thing. And that adds to the pressure and the anxiety. So I had my wife, Jenny, and our little baby girl, Haley, with us, and we rented a house, and I just tried to make it a normal week. We had fish and chips and a cold beer at night for dinner, and I had my friend Steve Bann, who's a great coach from Australia, staying with us. So we tried to make it just a normal week. And I was fortunate enough to be in the last group again. It was the third time I'd been in the last group on a Sunday. So I didn't have that anxiety of wondering what that was like. I'd played with Nick Faldo in the last group the year before at St Andrews. He kicked my butt and played great golf to win.
Yes, he did. He pretty much did what you did the next year. You learned quickly.
He did. And then to shoot 29 the front, usually if you're leading and you shoot 29 the front, you're pretty good. So
you're pretty good.
It was, and then I just hung on the back 9. I hit it in every green and 2-putted. And the last hole I played safe to avoid the bunkers. Hit it down the left of that pot that you don't want to go in, then right of the green to miss the bunkers on the green, chipped it on and 2-putted for bogey to win by a couple of shots. But obviously the highlight of my golfing career, still great memories. I've got a picture up on the wall there of Royal Birkdale up there. So some fond memories in my office. And then my favorite course in the world's right there in the background. That's Kingston Heath.
Very cool.
Great Graham Baxter painting of Kingston Heath there.
Oh,
so I don't. My wife won't let me have any golf photos anywhere else around the place. So I stole that wall there and put 6 favorites up, and so it's just some great memories. It's so long ago now, though. You know, it's like a different life. And,
and it's amazing. It's
very
almost
fortunate.
30 years, almost 30 years ago.
That's right. Next year will be 30, and next year will be St Andrews. The 150th Open, 150th playing of the Open in 21 at St Andrews, and then the next week I'll go over to Tokyo because the Olympics has been postponed for a year.
Okay.
I'm going to captain the Aussie golf teams again as I did in Rio. Great honour, very humbled to be doing that. So we'll go from St Andrews to Tokyo to Kasumi Gaseki Golf Club for the Olympics next year. So that's going to be a fun time as well.
Really good. And Ian, if you could give a young golfer, okay, I'm sure there's a lot of golfers and a lot of golf coaches watching. If you could give a young golfer just a very simple slice of advice, what would you say?
This is so easy to say, and I say it from the heart. You have to love the game, learn the game, enjoy the game, love the game. The game is for life. From when you first started, you know, and it's a love affair for me when I first started to play till now. You can play it till. Oh yeah, I love golf.
Yeah.
And I'm a golf nut. And then you can play it into your 80s. I've got a friend here that lives in the same apartment complex as us, Mike Dritz. He plays with Gary Player all the time. They're both in their mid-80s. He stays fit. I see him in the gym all the time. And he always tells me stories about Gary. And it's just to me, that's what it's all about. Yes, we all want to be Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka and Justin Thomas and Adam Scott, all of the great players, right? We want to be those guys that we watch on TV and we idolize them and we love them. But it's more than that. It's a game of life. It's a game that you can play forever. Yeah. It teaches you so much. It really does. I think the First Tee program really does a wonderful job in teaching youngsters that take up the game about the discipline of golf and the love of golf. So to me, that would be the biggest thing. It's, yes, try your hardest, be the best you can, get fit and strong, practice hard, all that sort of stuff. But it's a lifetime.
It's live the game. Live the game.
Live the game.
It's
very, very true.
Yeah.
And pick someone that you like their style and the way they handle themselves. And that's what I love about the great players of today. They all seem to be really good role models. I love the way they are. I think Tiger now, even at his, he's getting into his mid-40s. He's come back from these terrible adversity that he's been through with his back and struggles in the last 5-6 years to be a really good role model for his kids, for kids watching the game, seeing how he plays when he can play, when he's physically capable. And all of the young fellas like Ricky and Rory and Justin, they're just such great role models. They're really, really good kids. And I think that's a great attribute they show and share. And a great thing about our game that we've carried on, and I hope we continue to carry on the lessons that I learned from Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, right through, say, you've got Tom Watson, Greg Norman, Nick Price, Nick Faldo, that era, right, when I was playing in the 90s. And now through to these guys, I think Phil's been a great role model. He's 50 this year. Ernie Els, 50, out there playing the Champions Tour. Bernhard Langer still winning at 63. So that's what I love, that these old guys still continue to play the game and be good role models and teach these younger guys that are coming through. Ernie did such a great job this year at the President's Cup at Royal Melbourne with the young fellas. We had so many rookies on our team. We had 12 nationalities on the international team, and the US as well. The average age, I believe, was 26. It's incredible, the youngsters coming through and how good they are, and they're really good for the kids to watch and try and copy. Yeah,
Ian, you're a star as always, man. Thanks so much,
mate,
for taking some time out of your day. Really cool to chat with you. I know a lot of people have thoroughly enjoyed it. Just appreciate you as a golfer and as a man. You're a champ. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, I've just got to show you this. I'll get on my iPad here and show you a little photograph of what I've been doing the last 5 weeks.
She's got the same color hair you used to have.
Yeah, and my little girl, beautiful. Haley, that was, look at that, some happy thoughts, young Eloise.
Beautiful, eh? That's great, man. That's the best, eh? That is the best.
That's keeping me sane. So everyone, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ian. Hope to see you on TV soon.
Me too.
Cheers,
thanks,
man.
Andrew.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.